having me back. And I want to thank my Airbnb, Nancy Woody, who lives in Roseville. And so it's a treat for me to spend time with my dearest, oldest friend, old-time friend.
From the 70s.
We go back to Placerville and Shingle Springs and Pollock Pines. So yeah, that's how I know her. And I'm very excited to be here today. The internet changes as I'm speaking to you right now, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So I update this constantly and probably may miss something that happens today for tomorrow. But we will move along on that. Okay. There we go. A little bit about me. The Housewife Assassin is about Sarah Jane Moore, who tried to kill Ford in front of the St. Francis Hotel in 1975. Let me ask you for the photographer, is this a good place for me to stand?
No, I need to
Be in here, okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure, this is better.
Yes.
Will it still change? Yes, good, all right. And that's creative nonfiction. San Francisco Values is very left, let me let you know about that. And it was, I got the idea with my husband when I was very upset with Bill O'Reilly saying San Francisco values were bad values. And I said, no, they're not. They're wonderful values. And we care about everybody. I was so pissed off that I wrote this book. Regina of Warsaw is the first of the trilogy. It's based on my grandmother's story, who left Poland in 1910, who witnessed the 1906 pogrom. Does everybody know what a pogrom is?
Yes.
Okay, then you know the horror. Pogrom is a raid, it's a massacre, it's people, I'm talking to the gentleman in the blue shirt. These guys were on horses and slicing people and killing babies and destruction. So she and her sister witnessed that in Białystok when they were visiting, and part of that was the reason that she left Poland early to say we have to get out of here. The rest of the family died in the Holocaust. So the next book is Sister's Revenge, and then the other book will be, I'm not sure yet. So that's a little about me. So they talked about a list. There are lists in this presentation. You do not have to go crazy trying to write things down, because I'm giving them to you. Yeah.
I printed them out.
Oh, good, yeah. So if you don't get a list, make sure you talk to Margie or you email me, because I want you to have that information, but I'm going to show what the list looks like so you can say, okay, that's what that's about. All right. 65% or 2/3 is generated by bots. That's probably not big news. 400 hours of video content are uploaded constantly, every minute. And 6 billion of the 8 billion people on Earth are on the internet. The internet is our life all over the world. And it's brought us closer together. It's women in Africa can start a business because they have access to the internet and they can actually make some money. It's really wonderful. Okay, so the internet, we have to ask questions. And the one thing I'm going to be beating to death is asking a question more than one way, more than one time. You just don't know what's going to come up if it's accurate. Quick story about a lawyer who needed a couple cases for a lawsuit that he was presenting in court. So he went on to AI to give him a couple law cases, and he took those into court. There was only one problem. Those cases didn't exist. Oops. Yeah, oops, big time. We're going to talk about, I think I have a pointer here. Yeah. It's not showing. We're going to talk about methods. We're going to talk about the tools to organize ourselves. We're going to talk about the different search engines. We're going to talk about search strings, which is how you phrase your question. We're going to process and integrate. We're going to talk about how to communicate. So we need to have a clear, coherent question. If you don't know the question to ask, you don't know what you're going to get, and you don't know if it's accurate. And it's easy to do because you're just not sure of something. How do I know what I'm looking for? And how do I know what I'm getting means anything? And I'll show you a real scary example of that. We need to use the search engines, and we need search techniques. And we need to evaluate, and we need to be very skeptical. I love the internet. It allowed me to write my first book. It allowed me to do a lot of searches as a journalist. But I'm very, very skeptical because there's a lot of misinformation. And sometimes people purposely put misinformation on the internet. Any one of us can do that. We can insist the sky is round, and I'll tell you why. So what's central to the topic? Do you know the definition or terms you're using? We leave common terms together? That helps. And keep it short. So everything is guilty and cute until proven truthful. So we start by how do we organize ourselves online? And it's very different than when we went to the library and we had a notebook. The internet can make us sloppy. So we need to get some kind of an application or create an application that can organize your material. So one of the things that I was dealing with a lot, not so much in my first book, but the third book of Regina of Warsaw, was keeping dates straight. When were people born? When did they go to school? When did they graduate from high school? When did they do this? When did they do that? Oh my God, it was a nightmare because I had an adult, I had a marriage, and I had 4 children. So this I call our virtual file folder, and I think we're all old enough here to remember the card catalog. Yay! I love the card catalog. So these are some applications you can use. If you're a writer, you know Scrivener. There we go. I don't use Scrivener. It didn't work for me, but I use spreadsheets. I love Excel, and that helps me a lot. I also, and I was telling Nancy, my husband, who's just a brilliant organizer, printed out a grid for me that I could write in each box. When was this child born? When was this child graduate from high school? Physically in front of me, passing paper back and forth. And I could go back and forth and say, oh, okay, Dorothy here and Josie there and yada yada. But these also really help. These are some other tools for your research. This is part of your list. Evernote, I think people, and Grammarly. We have a lot of applications that can help us as long as we don't abuse them, I guess would be the word I want to use, that we don't abuse them. But, Grammarly really helps me. Even though I was an English major, I still have grammar problems. I'm not alone.
You're not alone.
So, this is my prehistorical. I can't help myself. So when we start our research, and an example is whatever you're writing about, what's already out there? That's called secondary research. What's been printed? What's been researched? What's been, in newspapers, magazines, other books, whatever. Get that information. It's valuable and shortcuts your time for reinventing something that's already there. I'm not talking about plagiarism. I'm talking about information. When I was looking up, doing Sarah Jane, it happened in 1979, and this was now 2007. What was out there? Well, it was a global issue. So there were newspaper articles, there were magazine articles, and I could go through, and a lot of it had not been digitized yet. So I had the pleasure of reading microfilm and microfiche. But I got the names of the FBI agents. I got the name of the Secret Service agents. I got the name of the judge. I got the name of this. I got the name of that. I didn't have to try and find it myself. Then I use that information to get primary information, which is new information. I called the FBI agents, I called the Secret Service agents. I couldn't, the judge wouldn't take my call, but I knew about him and I could research him. So that's a really good way to start your research. And like I said, I'm not talking about plagiarizing, I'm talking about information. And boy, did it help me a lot. Disambiguation. How do you phrase your search? If you ask a crazy question, you're going to get a crazy answer. So you always want to remove ambiguity from a word. And simple spelling, capital, capital. Right? I mean, that's just a basic example of how you can screw yourself up. And we're writers here. And my phrase is there's a lot of fact in fiction, even if it's not historical fiction. If you're writing about medicine, if you're writing about law, if you're writing about anything, facts are facts. Somebody is going to read your book and say, that didn't happen that way.
Right.
Quick story. My first book, before Housewife Assassin, that was a second publishing. The first one was Taking Aim at the President. I think when I spoke to you the first time, we talked about that book. It was published by Macmillan. And at the same time my book was going through the process, and they had me vet every single word and every resource I had in that book, because Macmillan did not want somebody to say something was wrong. But as a journalist, I kept copious notes and vetted everything. They vetted me. They had 2 lawyers go through every single word of my book. I was thrilled. I wanted that. And I knew that that book had to have a really good publisher standing behind it. It's not about winning a lawsuit. They don't want anybody that can even think they can bring a lawsuit. There was another author going through the process at the same time, and he was writing a book about Vietnam, fiction, as a battle in Vietnam. His editor was a vet. His editor knew that those weapons would never have been used in that circumstance.
Oh.
He lost his contract. So just an example, if I'm beating it into the ground, I'm beating it even more. Make sure your facts are correct. If you're writing fantasy, da-da-da-da-da. But otherwise, be very careful. So the web. There's different kinds of webs. There's the surface web, the easy one, the ones we know and love, Google, Yahoo, Bing. The deep web is your banking, your email, your special sites, libraries, or universities. You don't have to sit there and know when you're going into your email, you're going into your online banking, that you're in the deep web. You're just doing it. But that's just so you know, because that's protected information. The dark web, and people talk about the Silk Road, is where a lot of other information is stored. It doesn't always have to be illegal. You don't always have to be buying drugs if you're on the dark web. Or what else?
Better than Google.
The popular one is called Tor, and it means the onion router. And you can go on there and you can put it on your machine. I have this on my machine. I do research on the dark web. I also have something to protect me, which you can go to these different search engines and protect you. I use a virtual private network, and some of them are free. We'll talk about that. Some of them you pay $5 a month. But if this scares you, don't do it. I just want you to know about it. I want you to know it's there, and I want you to think about it if it's going to help you do some really deep research.
What does it mean, dark? I don't understand.
It's because it has a special engine, has a special place that it belongs. So you have to specifically access it. You don't have to go to the deep web first to get your email or your banking. If you want to go to the dark web, you need a search engine to get to it. You have to ask for it. So this is some examples of research that I used, and this was using Tor on my book about Sarah Jane and an organization called Tribal Thumb. And when I researched Tribal Thumb, you can almost find nothing about them. You can find out about them now. But they were a very nasty, radical organization. They killed people. And Sarah Jane aligned herself with them because they groomed her. to go shoot it forward. So they were very important to my book, and they weren't easy to find. So, do you want to hide your search? A lot of people want to do that because they're tired of the ads, right? Google, you write one thing down and you get 50 ads about that one thing, and it's annoying as hell. So, there are all kinds of ways to hide your search. Now, Chrome Incognito has gotten sort of a bad rap. Hiding it means that you're hiding your IP address and people can't see where you're searching. It doesn't mean you're paranoid. It means like, I just don't need the world to know that I'm looking up hair dye. That's all. DuckDuckGo, you know about that one. It's very popular. It's easy to use. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here today.
We live in a closet.
Freenet is another one. The VPNs I talked about, the virtual private networks, you can install them. They're very easy. You don't even see anything. Basically, you go and you say, I want a VPN, and you sign up for it, and maybe it's $5 a month. It goes onto your computer, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then, of course, there's the dark web tour. So this is what a VPN looks like. So here's you, and here's your searching, and it goes into this little vessel. Nobody else can see it. It's coming out to you. So all of these things that you're looking at, hackers, governments, ISPs, are hidden. So you get fewer ads. Yeah. And I liked it because I was, searching all over the place online. And I just didn't want to get a lot of noise back from what I was doing. And then this is Chrome's Incognito. If you go to Chrome's site, you see this little guy up here. If you click on that, supposedly that's supposed to hide your search. And that's easy to use too, and it's free. You shouldn't see any difference when you're on your computer. You don't see the virtual private network. You don't see DuckDuckGo. It's there in the background. And here's a little DuckDuckGo. I know. So cute. So you can't track you for your advertising. That's tough. So common and uncommon websites. These are the ones that we know and love. And you can go to searchengineguide.com and see all the different ones that are out there. I use Google as a gateway. I use Google to get me to Tor because I had to have a platform to find these other places. And since Google is so massive, it was easy to find Tor. Google also has, and I know this is not easy to see because it's a screenshot, they have an advanced search page. Did you know that? I didn't know that. It is much more detailed. So if you go onto Google and you see the little gear and it says advanced, it'll give you a couple pages of asking you more information. No, it doesn't go back there. About your search. So instead of just putting one sentence in that, that little window, you can put yes, no, look, ignore, yada, 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 and it'll cut through a lot of the noise to find what you're looking for. I didn't know about it for a long time and went, oh, that's cool. So this I'm going to show you is a website that I found that I never knew existed, and it's called Search Engine Colossus. If you're doing any research about any other country, this guy has it. And you can search these countries in English.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't speak Swahili, and my book was Polish, so I was able to go into that. This one is for Native Americans called First Nations. But, to try to give you the whole screen, it would have been, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. But I wanted to share this with you because I never knew it existed, and I thought, that's fantastic. So let's say I'm looking at New Zealand. Maori is the native language. They also speak English, but you can do all of this research about New Zealand. That would have been much more difficult before, because you would have this narrow search. Well, I want to know, about Auckland, New Zealand, and I want to know something. Well, you can cut through it this way. I mean, how many of you are doing any books or writing in other countries? Nobody. I was. All right. But if you do, now you know about it. I had to share this. So we have specialty sites too that you can actually go to and do research on. If you're doing anything about the US government, you can go to this page and you can search and you can find out what you need to know. It makes it a lot easier. And it has a how do I. These are government websites. This is a list of all these different websites. When I was doing, research for Taking Aim, the first iteration, I needed to know about the government and our government, and she didn't have a trial, she had a hearing. What does that mean? How is that different than her having a hearing and testimony? And what did the judge have to do? Any legal people in the room? One of the things I learned is if you plead guilty, they send you to see a bunch of shrinks to make sure you understand what you're doing to plead guilty.
That's good.
Yeah.
Where is that at?
Where's what at?
What you just
The
said?
list? It's in the list that I sent you.
Wow, but what country?
Oh, this is U.S. government.
And will you repeat that again?
It's U.S. government.
I had a hard time getting that in my head. Can you repeat?
It used to be called the U.S. government.
Yeah, but what did you just say?
About Sarah Jane Moore, she means.
Pardon me?
About Sarah Jane Moore, she's.
Hearing. You're talking about Sarah Jane Moore, your
Yeah.
hearing? Okay, sorry. So there's a difference between having a hearing and having a trial.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, she pleaded guilty. By pleading guilty, she did not have a trial. They did not have witnesses.
All right.
She just said, I did it. So they sent her to a bunch of shrinks to say, do you understand by pleading guilty that you're automatically guilty, you're not going to have a trial? There's nobody in your defense. She said, yes.
Very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's still went to jail.
Yeah, see what we learned? I never had to go to court to deal with it.
You know that?
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to show you that there are government websites that you can search on and you don't have to be a lawyer. And they have places up here. This is the CIA. If you're writing a mystery and you want to know something about the CIA, go to their website. You can search. Freebie. Yeah.
I'm sure James Patterson knows about them.
He probably does. I'm sure he does. The same thing for the FBI. You can just go to the website and do a search. Is that for me?
It's the CIA.
Now, cut that woman off. Wikipedia has gotten a very bad rap over the years, and I'll tell you why I like Wikipedia, because it has citations.
Yeah.
You can go to the citations. Sarah Jane Moore, Wikipedia. I'm up there because I wrote a book about her. So you can use Wikipedia and check the citations of where they're getting that information. It's an excellent site for searching.
I love
Yeah. So here's St. Martin's Press. That's me. Here's what United States Report. Yeah. Yeah. Now, we can't finish this without talking about AI. Of course. I use AI for research, but I use it the same way I would use Google or Bing or Yahoo. I ask the question 3 different ways. And sometimes I get 3 different answers for the same question.
It's kind of interesting, actually.
I'll use Bard, which is actually Google, it's called Gemini. I'll use Chat GPT, and I'll ask both of them the same question, 3 different ways, and I'll also just go on to Google, and we'll talk about how you create your searches, the sentences, and see if I'm getting the same information more than once. The internet is full of misinformation. You have to know that. That's one reason I also go to libraries and actually look things up in books. Yeah.
The good old book.
I have to tell you, when I was researching my book, I lived at the Palo Alto Main Library. The reference librarians already knew me. They would, "Hi Jerry, what do you need today?" They got me all set up in front of the microfilm. I mean, they were just so helpful to me in so many ways because they know their system so well. And they know things that I can have access to that I didn't know I could. You know? Miss Researcher here. So here's Chat GPT, and I'm looking up Geri Spieler, right? You should always look yourself up on the internet. You want to see what people are saying about you. You really should. It's not a vanity thing. It's really an information thing.
That's true.
Now, I don't know who this person is, because that's not me. That's my name. Yeah. I never worked for the New York Times or USA Today.
Oh, wow.
I didn't write something about the next generation in an Indie Book Award. Never got that. I'm not a member of the Association of Science Writers.
Oh, my God.
I never wrote Medical Detective.
Wow.
So how did that get there?
It's
Yeah, why?
pulled out information about maybe another Geri Spieler.
That's what I was
My
thinking.
point is,
That was I was thinking.
you get different information. How does somebody know that that's not me if they don't know me?
Yeah, that would be.
Oh, really, Jerry? You work for the New York Times. When did you live in New York? Or were you work in New York?
Yes, you did. Did you forget?
I get it. Come on. It's all a blur.
I forgot.
Making a point here. So, getting back to AI, I was on a couple of panels at the San Francisco Writers Conference about using AI, and then also Jane Friedman, I don't know if you know who she is, but she's fabulous, and she had a whole 2-hour presentation on using AI and how it can be used. You can teach it to write like you. There's a way to do that. You have to buy the level up service, not just the basic one. But I'm not going to do that. But it's great for researching if you use it with the same rigor you would use your research just with Google. Ask more questions. You don't want to publish a Geri Spieler who we don't even know about. Or you don't want to be the lawyer who took 2 cases into court that didn't exist. And I don't want my surgeon using AI and, and not really understanding that maybe you don't cut that way. But it's fabulous. What it does is it lays things out for you easier to read. Even when you ask it different questions. Or I ask Bard the same question I asked Chat GPT, and they lay it out for you. So it's easier to take one of their answers and spit that answer back. Maybe it gives you 5 different references on the same question. Okay, let's take question 4, and let's feed that back in. Now what is it saying? When I was looking up for actually this new book, the draft, I just finished book 2 for the trilogy, and in that is the creation, the building of the brand new Los Angeles airport, and who were the architects on that airport, and when was it finished? I got 3 different answers.
Oh, man.
And I'm going back, and I'm going back, and I'm going back. 1930, 1934, 1935. which is it? And it wasn't called an international airport in 1930. It was just the Los Angeles airport. So is the date referring to when it was renamed? It didn't say.
Yeah.
Made me crazy. Huh. So these are some, this is a list, online libraries. You may know about these already, and we all know that you can access your library from home, your fuzzy slippers. And libraries have databases that we would have to pay for. We don't have to pay for them through the library if you don't already use them. I'm guessing everybody in this room has multiple library cards. And these are some of the databases that are fantastic. And there's more. But it's really wonderful where we live and what we have access to. And there's more. And more. This is part of your list. Well, you can see why I wanted to give you a list and not have you try to write this down. It goes on. So, if there's a list document that has 17 additional search engines, you're going to get that. Some are free and some are paid. And sometimes you have to pay for it, but that was important for me. Now we're going to do comparative searching. So we're going to look at the difference from one search engine to another with the same question and what happens. So here I'm going to use Sarah Jane Moore because I know the topic. And this is AOL, and it gives me Wikipedia, all that's interesting, history on the net, the History Channel. So let's pick one. All that's interesting, all about Sarah Jane Moore, with misinformation and no citations. Where'd they get this? And the information isn't right. Now, if I didn't know this, I wouldn't know this. So am I scaring everybody enough?
Well, if you had started there, then you would know that, and you'd just head out with bad information.
Exactly.
100%.
And my publisher would go, we're pulling your contract. So now we're going to go on, we're going to use DuckDuckGo, and we're going to look up Wikipedia, Daily Mail, SF Gate, which is the San Francisco Chronicle online version. And we're going to look at Wikipedia, and guess what? We get citations.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what you need.
yes. You know, and check out, you don't have to check out every single one, but pick a couple. Now Google, our friend Google, Wikipedia, all that's interesting, history on the net. History on the net, no citations and misinformation.
That's interesting.
So things that don't have citations are misinformation?
Could be. If I didn't know this, I wouldn't know that that's misinformation. The point I'm beating to death, which is probably the main thing I want you to go away with, is skepticism.
Yeah.
Double checking, triple checking. I don't want anything in my books to be wrong.
I agree.
Opinion is one other thing. Everybody can have their own opinion about whatever it is they want. Facts are facts. Yeah,
If you don't have the right facts, you lose your credibility.
exactly. Exactly. Somebody out there is going to know. I have never, that book was published in 2009 originally from Macmillan. This is a second printing. Not one person in the world has ever challenged that book. And there is FBI, Secret Service, underground organizations, government, all kinds of stuff that could be challenged. But it wasn't, because I just was so careful. Yeah.
Is the disinformation that you're referring to, does it appear in this somewhere? What's on there?
I bolded it. It says
Oh,
she took
okay.
aim at Ford and began to fire. I'm sorry, you can't see that from there.
No, I can't.
Bystander disabled the gun, deflecting the shot. That was after. There were 2 shots. I'm going to just tell a short story. And I got this quote from Richard Vitamonte, who was the case FBI agent with Judge Conti, who was on the bench, Superior Court in San Francisco. And through multiple attempts, I reached him and asked if I could talk to him. And he said, it's been 30 years, the file has been sealed. It's time to set the record straight. He wrote to Washington and he got the file opened for me. Wow. I will tell you, and this will shock you, that when Sarah Jane first shot at Ford, the government lied to us about what happened.
Hoping surprise.
They said she was a loner, she had delusion, she wanted fame, and she shot wild, and she was not serious. None of that was true. She was a marksman. She had used guns a lot, but she bought that gun the same morning she drove from Danville to San Francisco, knowing Ford was there, that there was a big meeting there, and he was going to come walking out of the St. Francis Hotel. And the only reason she missed his head is because the sight was off of the gun by 6 inches. Wow. 6 inches. Judge Conti, in the hearing, said, quote, "You would have killed the man if you didn't have had a faulty gun." And Richard Vitamonte told me she had him between the eyes. Oh. Wow. She hadn't practiced with that gun. She bought it and just drove down there. She was not acting alone. She was very serious and representing an organization that was grooming her. But the government didn't want us to know because, number one, at the time, Betty was in alcohol recovery. And number two, Ford was safe. And the reason people say, well, why Ford? It had nothing to do with Ford. He was the president at the time. It could have been anyone. He was coming through San Francisco, and he was the office of the president. And that's how that happened. And so by getting, and I interviewed President Ford, by getting the file opened for me to be able to put all that new information in the book, got me a great agent and a great publisher. But you know, that's the kind of, I had to beat these FBI guys up left and right to get to the right one. Because they all said, well, we'll tell, you need to talk to Richard Vitamonte. Can I have his email, his phone number? No, we'll tell him you're looking for him. They never give out each other's information, ever.
Yeah, sure.
And then he finally called. He said, I'm in Walnut Creek, I don't know where you are, but you want to talk to me, you come up to my house. Is yesterday too soon? Did we do this one already?
No.
Do the Google.
This is
Fox
Google.
News.
Yeah.
Interesting that they went to the top
Yes.
of that.
This was history on the net, we did that one. Oh, here we go. Okay, vintage news, no citations, misinformation, excuse me. Wow. There we go. Yeah. So here we go again. So how do you know? On the same day as assassination attempt, Secret Service agent visited Moore, had her in custody, took her 44 the night before. No. Wow. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Did we do this one?
No.
No. This is Wikipedia. Okay. Make sure I'm going the right direction here. And Wikipedia has citations. And this is the dark web. I'm sorry, let me read it properly. So this is what I got when I went into Tor. And more Tor. They had a lot more than the other sites did. So that, you know, gives you an example of what you can find where and how you can find it and what is it giving you.
Jerry, my concern is all these self-published books where they don't go and they don't thoroughly research. People that self-publish, they just go to, Google, whatever, and without citations and figure that's the truth. Think of all the books out there that aren't cited.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like they're flooding the publishing scene.
Yeah, well, that's a whole discussion about self-publishing, good, bad, or indifferent,
Yeah.
about, how much rigor does a writer do before they self-publish their book? Do they get an editor?
But I've read some horrible self-published books that are awful, that don't have any, like they've never been edited.
Well, you're nice to read them.
I read them on Amazon.
Yeah.
Very well
Oh my
researched.
God, this is horrible.
Not our book.
At what point do you put it?
Not art, no, I'm talking about a book that looks interesting, I think, and they're.
It's a great story.
They're abominable.
Yeah.
I mean, abomination.
I've read some well-published books that were not very good either.
Right.
And they haven't had an editor at all. They just write it and they self-publish and get it on Amazon. And you think, how is that, watering down
Yeah.
what you
What's-
do?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I will get through this, take great, great, great pride in, being factual.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if it's
Well,
something
the good
I don't
ones
like.
sit to the top.
Yeah. Well, I have an agent and I have a traditional publisher. And so that process
Yeah.
does help because I have to pass muster
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
And I take great pride in that. I work really hard at it.
Right.
So I wanted to let you know that there are sites, specialty sites that you can use. You don't have to be a physician. You can go on to Science News and you can look up information, right? You don't have to belong to this organization. If you're doing something about medicine, any kind of medicine, you can go to these sites and look it up. You don't have to pay. New England Journal of Medicine. Search. Easy peasy. PubMed. You've heard of PubMed. You can search on there. You don't have to belong to you don't have to be a physician with the AMA to do medical research on PubMed. It's free.
Just be careful of abstracts.
Okay, yes.
Yes, because abstracts are somebody's, they include a conclusion at the end, but if you don't know if you don't read the whole study, which that you may have to pay to do.
Yeah.
If you don't read the whole study, you don't know the quality of the research and the way they arose to that conclusion. So it could be more of an assumptive. So any doctor will tell you, don't read the abstract. That
What if
just
you
gets
looked at several different abstracts? More than one? Would you be able to narrow it that way?
You learn maybe from that more questions to ask.
Uh-huh.
If you want a reference and know that what the research is, you may have to buy an article or pay for for a PDF of it
Right.
or something.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
Thank
be
you.
careful with abstracts.
Thank you. Legal research. So Westlaw, usually you have to pay for it, but you can get a free trial. So if you ask for a free trial, then, we'll go back here, you can search on Westlaw without paying for it. And we all know LexisNexis. You can get a free trial there as well and do some legal research on LexisNexis, which is also really valuable. Court cases, this is open to the public. This is something that journalists use a lot for federal court cases, but you can use it, anybody can use it. So if you're doing some sort of a mystery or you want to look up some kind of a federal case and grab, some data from that to use in your book, you can do that without paying for it. Meta search engines are the bigger bang for the buck, as they say. So there'll be more than one search engine and these are in your list, on these particular search engines. So Zulu has 10 search engines on it. So when you look up something on Zulu, you're gonna get a flood of stuff. Maybe it's too much, but it'll give you a big overview of what else is out there, and you can pick and choose. Turbo Scout, 7 different categories. So I looked up penguins.
Yeah.
Directories are made by people. So like the AMA or the, the Lawyers Association are directories. You can just go into Google and look up a directory if you want. But if you're looking for people or the kinds of licenses or whatever people have, this helps you sort of look at that. You may have to look up the definition, of some of the initials that are behind somebody's name. But it can kind of add some sizzle to your book. This guy has licensing in something really wild, like cockroaches or whatever. So Google Directory. It makes it quick and easy. And then we talk about invisible web, which is basically like the dark web. People use different words for it. But you can also use a deep web search engine, and I have a list for you of deep web search engines. This one's biotech, but this is a list, and you can check them out. Sort of play around when you have time and say, what am I going to get here and what am I going to get there? Turbo 10 is one of the mega search engines.
Mama.
Yeah.
I like Crusty too. Sounds like Crusty.
Wow. So this is a list. And this I found by accident,
What an education.
and the way it's spelled tells me it's UK.
Yeah.
But it has some fun little things on it just to kind of peruse as we're writers. What are they saying about it? Is there any little piece of information that could be helpful to me? I know I need all the help I can get. But I thought I would share this with you. This going back, it's not a list, it's called National Center for Writing, CNTRE.
Wow.
Yeah, just threw it in there. Sources is used by the press a lot, but you can use it as well. It's free. And if there's, let's say, something in the news you want to know more about, or you can just look up anything and see what comes back. You just don't know. They're just, my fear is, what am I missing? What question did I not ask? That's easier to do when you're directly interviewing somebody. And I was telling Nancy and Gil last night, 2 sentences when you finish interviewing somebody is there a question I should have asked you that I didn't ask? And who else should I talk to? Now this we talked about earlier on phrasing your search. Because if you don't ask the right question, you're not going to get the answer you think you need. You need to know the definition of the term you're using. If it's a term you're not familiar with, get familiar with it so you know what you're asking. Keep the terms together. Don't have a long question. And we talked about keeping it short. So this is what they're called, search strings. And I'm guessing everybody in the room is familiar with Boolean searches. You may not know the name, but it's plus, minus, yes, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this one, this little asterisk, is called a wild card. And that means, I don't know what I'm looking for, but give me everything you got.
Because I have a month to look it up.
That's right. And quotations means I want only what's in these quotes. I don't want anything else. I want what's in these quotes. This is another list. But these are all the basic kinds of things. Blogging, you can just write plus blog. The formal is in URL, but you can just use blog. You can look up a file search. You can look up somebody's link. You can look something marketing or writing. You can look up a definition. And of course, the Boolean is and or not, plus, minus, quotes. So we're going to pretend we're looking up FBI counterintelligence in quotation marks, and this is what I got. So it gave me the things in quotation marks, FBI counterintelligence, FBI counterintelligence. Okay, there we go. COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program. Now, I did a test on this using different websites, and this is what I got back, FBI.gov. So I got counterintelligence there, and I got FBI counterintelligence here. Chickens. I'm looking up chicken blogs, because Nancy knows I have chickens.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see what blogs there are about chickens, so I used the formal term. And I got, pages and pages of chicken blogs. People search, dirty little secret. These are some people search sites. I was looking up people from 30 years ago when I was writing that book, because it happened in 1975 in San Francisco. So I said, okay, chances are these people probably still live in the Bay Area. Now the women may have changed their names. Maybe. So I paid for 3 different people searching sites from home. I wasn't a journalist working at the Chronicle or the Times. I was just a writer working at home on her computer. I had no access to fancy databases, and I could not afford LexisNexis. So I picked a couple of these, and I used what I had in terms of where they were, names, ages, and I found people that didn't want to be found by using these guys. So here's an example. This one's called the White Pages, and I know it's a screenshot, so it's probably not real easy to see. But here's my name, where I live, and looked up Geri Spieler. She's vice president of a company. The company's on El Camino. She's an author. She was living in Mountain View. That's all accurate. I use Zaba Search. What is Zaba Search going to tell me? Okay, Geri Spieler. Where's my little thing? There it is. Palo Alto, California. I live in Palo Alto now. That's where I live. And then you can go through my age. I can get more. The more you want, the more you pay for. So you can get a certain amount for free. This was an example of that. If you pay this much, this much, this much, it was worth it to me to get as much information as I could so I could find a way to contact these people. And you get information and you can look up phone numbers or email addresses. And I did. And I found people who, were part of the whole cabal with Sarah Jane Moore. Even somebody who was with Tribal Thumb. Wow. Now, what he said, and I physically went to interview him, he said, well, I wasn't in Tribal Thumb, but I knew them. Because if Sarah Jane had had a trial, there would be a lot of unindicted co-conspirators. So she took the bullet for the group, and I think that was agreed in advance, that she was going to be a martyr to the cause. So interesting. And then a lot of this information is accurate. in terms of who these people
I
are.
looked myself up and it said I was a Buddhist just because my last name is Japanese.
Huh?
It said my religion was Buddhism.
Oh, there you go. Yes. From the audience.
Shot in the dark.
Yes.
Love that.
And you can get somebody to go to a court for you by paying that. If you're out of town, you can pay someone to go to the local court. The other thing you're not going to want to hear is, I can get your social security number.
No.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
easy,
it's everywhere.
for free, yeah. It's out there. There's nothing that people can't get if they want to get it. So my feeling is, don't go crazy. If you want to be off the grid, you have to really be off the grid in every single way.
That's right.
If you have a driver's license, you're on the grid.
Yeah, you can't not.
And then these are some of the sites.
Fingerprints, brothers here.
And then, here we go about how do we know what we're looking at is credible. So these are some things you can think about, like who wrote this website? You know, if there's any information. Who's paying for this website? Where's the money? What are they trying to sell you? And what's the scope of the site? You know, how much does it cover? So my feeling is, and we know there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of opinion out there, and there's people that are presenting that as facts out there. You know, how do you know? It's getting harder and harder to do the research offline and online. You know, what magazines do you read? What newspapers do you read? What websites do you read? What podcasts do you listen to? Who are these people? Oh. Is there evidence that the author of the web has authority? You know, now anybody can, as we know, anybody can publish anything.
Yeah.
Right. You had a question? No.
Just a comment going along with the websites and blogs that I find, even things that look like it's some sort of news site, if they don't date the article,
Yes.
they're trying to have like evergreen information.
Yes.
And it's like, when? And you say, this year, blah, blah, blah. It's like, when?
When? Yes. Well, that's one of the things that was, defined.
So for our own credibility,
Yeah.
date your blog site,
Yes.
your blog entries. It's not evergreen, it happens in time.
Right. Exactly. Yes. 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 And do they have published, things, and where are they published? Can you tell if it's biased? You probably can. You know. And is it current? Just what you said. Is there a date on it? How do we know when this happened? Was it 5 years ago or was it yesterday? This is my quick and dirty list. It's called the CARS checklist. And it's an easy way to sort of know in your head when you're looking up something. What is it? Plagiarism. The kiss of death. And it is so easy now to know if something's been plagiarized more than ever. You put it into a plagiarism checker and it combs the internet and it'll come back with whole things or sentences or whatever. And with AI, places that I write for have sent letters saying that they're going to put your article through an AI check to tell if it was written by AI and not you. On top of plagiarism.
But I love that AI has to rat itself out. I
Yeah.
think that's lovely. I really appreciated that new wrinkle in the whole conversation.
Uh-huh. So these are the sources that I used to put this together. And that's that. And thank you very much.
I'm exhausted just listening to you. And all that you had to do to get a book published. Do you hire someone to help you research
I don't trust anybody else.
My God.
I love doing the research. The writing is really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. But the research is fun. And the problem with it, I bet everybody in here can identify, you go through a black hole. You start and it's 3 hours later.
Time travel.
But
Some great videos.
one of the reasons that my agent in McMillan wanted this book, and I will brag, was because of my research. Because I found out things that nobody else knew.
Wow.
And I was able to. It's persistence. No, in some cases, means not now. Or call somebody else. But we were having this conversation and Gil said, you have to be ready to pick up the phone. Email is too easy to delete. A voice on the phone isn't as easy. And you just keep going. And I was very lucky that the Secret Service and the FBI were really great. They were fantastic. They said, they agreed it's time to set the record straight. But nobody had ever called them about it. So they just let it sit in Washington in some vault somewhere.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jerry, that's amazing.
But that's how you get it. Yeah.
If I could just add one thing about VPNs for people who aren't familiar. They're very handy if you're in a public place like an airport or a coffee shop and you want to do some banking or anything like that, that other people can intercept things through the Wi-Fi or the Bluetooth. Or you're in a hotel, you would prefer to use a VPN. Keep your
Thank you.
information private.
Wow.
Yeah. Neat.
Yes, I wanted to mention that one may be associated with an organization where you can get LexisNexis. I was teaching in Washington part-time and had access through the community college.
Yeah.
And you may not even know it, so that's a wonderful resource. of
Yeah.
course.
But you were teaching at the community
Yeah.
college. So if I wasn't teaching there, I wouldn't have access.
As a student, you would not.
Yeah. But that's good to know if you're, yeah. Well, I think there's somewhere, when I was at the newspapers, I had access to all these databases. They were just part of working there. But when you're not working there, it's different. Yeah.
What do you think about Help a Reporter? Do you use that site?
I have not used it, but I think it's neat.
I have so many things published from there.
Oh, neat.
Newspaper reporters
Right.
on a needs list about articles that they need help with. And if you have any kind of expertise, you answer their questions and they'll get back to you. And then you don't necessarily know, some tell you when it's published and they'll give you, they'll give you a copy. Others don't. So you just go on Google and see if it comes up. And I've had so many things published in newspapers.
Whole articles or
saying,
just
"What's
your
it called?
contributions?"
Help a Reporter. It's kind of fun.
What's it called?
What's it called?
HelpAreporter.com.
But aren't they taking, it's not your whole article that they're publishing.
No, they
No.
publish my name they cite my name.
They cite you, yes.
For things that I've said.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, nobody's asked me about chickens yet.
You need to go on and ask. I know a lot about chickens. So
I volunteered in hospitals, so they asked about volunteering.
Oh, that's
I
fantastic.
was a teacher, so that I've answered a lot of educational questions.
Oh, great.
And so they
Yeah.
get educational articles, things like that.
Yeah,
But it's fun, you just,
Yeah.
if you want to be cited somewhere.
sure.
It's fun.
It's like getting a letter to the editor.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Janine.
Okay, why did the chicken cross the road?
The chicken is saying that they really like to have people stop asking them why they cross it. They just really would like people to stop asking.
box on the other side. Stop asking questions.
Margie?
Yes, I was going to say, your training as a journalist, investigative reporter probably helped you to work on your book. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Your background?
Yeah.
What specifically? Anything specific?
Just the
What was
research and making sure that I had my facts right. I had editors, multiple editors writing, from the first draft, and cleaning it up. And it was interesting because half of the people said, put yourself in the book, Geri, as the person who, ends up writing about her and the backstory, which is a crazy backstory, how I even came to know this woman, and other people said, no, don't put yourself in, and I didn't put myself in, but there is a crazy backstory.
What is that?
I was working for the Times. Do we have time? What time do we finish here?
Oh, yeah, we got time.
So I was in Los Angeles, and I was asked to cover a story about Sybil Brand Jail, which is the largest women's jail in the country. And there was a class action suit against the jail that their law library was not equal to the library in the men's jail. So I covered that story. I knew Sarah Jane had shot it forward because that was up in San Francisco and it was international news. But she wasn't part of my beat. I just knew about it. Because she was pleading guilty, the psychiatrists were down in a facility north of San Diego. And while she was there, she got the LA Times, and she saw my story about women in prison. So she wrote to me at the Times and said, I know I'm going to be incarcerated in Los Angeles, and I'd like to meet you.
Whoa.
And I thought, I've never met an assassin before. I wonder what she's like.
Wow. Reason enough.
She never met a reporter she didn't love.
Yeah.
So she went through her hearing and she went through her sentencing, and sure enough, she was sentenced to a prison in San Pedro, which is just a little south of me. And so I got on her visitors list. And the day came and I went to the prison. I had never been in a prison before. And I'm sitting there and this woman comes towards me. And she says, are you Geri? Thank you for coming. That's so lovely of you. I thought we were going to lunch. That was not an assassin. That was an assassin.
That scares the hell out of you, doesn't it?
She could have been any woman in this room.
That's right.
Nobody saw her coming. The Secret Service profile of an assassin at the time, and I quote, a young man between 20 and 30 years old, a foreigner, a loner with delusions of grandeur. That's who they were looking for in the audience. Not you, not me, not Nancy, not Margie.
Wow.
When she shot it forward, everybody is now suspect. Everybody.
Right.
Because she looked like her neighbor.
Good.
And she's charming. If she were in this room, she would be so charming. She's extraordinarily smart and talented, and she was a marksman, but it was interesting because when she bought the gun off this gun dealer in Danville, that morning, he said, you're going to want to test the gun for your target shooting because I don't think the sight is exactly right.
Oh.
And she just said, yeah. And just drove
Thank
down.
God for Ford.
Somebody's guardian angel.
Yeah, he was a lucky man.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a real tragedy to have another assassination. Ugh.
Yes.
So, so, and when I went to see her, I said, I just want you to know I'm not your fan. I don't agree with what you did. It was wrong. And I'm not here to save you.
Yeah.
None of that. I'm just curious about you. She loved it. Didn't matter. So we kept in touch, and I moved around the country. I lived in Rhode Island. I was in Washington, D.C. Then I was in Northern California. And she got moved around the country, and she ended up in Pleasanton at the facility there. I think we just closed it. And we wrote. But, if she told me the sky was brown, the sky was brown. I don't care. I don't go home every night and research the conversation I had with you to see if you're telling me the truth or not. It's like, whatever. She had no impact on my life. I sent gifts to her one son that I knew about. I didn't know about the 3 other children that she abandoned. So it was, it was a crazy time. And then when she asked me to write her book, I said, I don't write books. They're too hard and they take too long. I write 1,500 words and then I'm done. But then when I started researching her, I started saying, wait a minute, this isn't right, that isn't right. And then in my research, I found that she talked to Father Bill O'Donnell, who is a Catholic priest in Berkeley at St. Joseph of the Worker, and Sarah Jane marched for the grape strike, and she talked to him, and he sat with her at her hearing because nobody was there for her. Nobody. And he said she shouldn't be alone. So I said, can I talk to you about that? I'll just finish this sentence. Sure. And he said, sure. And we set a time, and he wrote to Sarah Jane and said, I'm so excited that Geri Spieler is going to write your book. That's really great. Well, she flipped out. She called me on the phone. I took her call, and she was screaming at me. How dare you talk to him? I will tell you who can talk to. I will tell you what you can say. That's not how it works. And then she said, then I am no longer at home to you. Bam! Slammed the phone down. That's the last time we ever had 2 words. And then I had to decide if I could write the book without her.
I'm just curious, you're saying this is the first time you ever came encounter with an assassin. And in meeting with her and getting to know her and somewhat forming a relationship, did you discover anything odd or strange or made you think this one ain't quite right? Comparing to anybody else you would meet. Was there any flags?
Yeah.
Oh,
The only flags came after I realized she lied, for 20 years. But if you're sitting and talking with her, she's well-read. Her penmanship was perfect. She had
But she
perfect
flips. She flips when it's not her.
That was the only time I ever saw that.
Yeah.
Because whenever I saw her, and I didn't know about all the other people that were visiting her, what the FBI said at Secret Service, she would have been a perfect spy because she could compartmentalize and never slip.
And that's scary when you know people like that.
Yeah, but I didn't know. She didn't have an impact. She didn't meet my family. She didn't meet my friends.
No, yeah.
Our relationship was just one-on-one.
No, I get that. Thank God.
And whenever I saw her, she was just lovely. And I sent books because they would all share books. And she was interesting. So I took her at face value. I had no reason not to until I found out there were 3 other children that she never talked about ever. And she abandoned them when they were little kids to their mother. It's a phrase in the book that I sometimes read, but I'm not going to read it today. But that's one of the, and then she reinvents herself multiple times. And when she reinvented herself in Hollywood, she sent her 3 kids on an airplane to her mother. She was supposed to bring them home. No, she sent them home. And they couldn't find her. She disappeared. And she reinvented herself to this sweet little virginal Southern girl who went to work for RKO and met this sound designer guy, John Alberg, who had won multiple awards as a sound designer. And her quote in a letter to me was, "We have so much in common. Neither of us has any family."
Liar. Yeah, liar.
And that's how she presented herself to him. And he had no way of knowing. But she had 4 kids. No, actually 3. She had one with him, yeah.
But you visited her in prison several times,
I
right?
visited her when I was local and she was local. It was never in West Virginia. One of the stories, I found her kids and I interviewed her kids and they were very forthcoming with me that she had abandoned. And the brother told me about the sister Janet, the one girl she had, when Sarah Jane was then sentenced to Alderson, West Virginia, and the kids were from West Virginia. So Janet said, "I'm going to go meet our mother." And Dana said, "Don't do it. Don't go there. No. I want to see our mom. She's going to want to see me." She went to the prison. She said to the guard, "I'm here to see Sarah Jane Moore," Sarah Jane Kahn. And who are you? I'm her daughter, Janet. Okay, let me go back. She's waiting. He comes back and he says, I'm sorry, ma'am. She says she doesn't have a daughter.
Can you imagine?
How painful.
Jerry, do you have any idea why she would do this? Maybe she had an ulterior motive, not to sully them with her?
Oh, no, she wasn't worried about sullying anybody. She left a path of destruction on everybody that she ever met. She destroyed the last boy, John Alberg, she had a son. She left Los Angeles pregnant with his son and moved to San Francisco. She just left him. Said, well, I can't live in Los Angeles anymore. Everybody she touched, she damaged, or tried to damage. Somebody else in there. Yes.
She was paroled, and it was a lifetime parole. Didn't she get sent back to prison?
That's a very good question, and thank you for asking it. The sentencing laws before 1987, 30 years was a life sentence. So after 30 years, for good behavior, you were eligible for parole. She did escape once. She beat up another prisoner to go with her, and it was in the middle of winter, and they were walking down the street in cotton dresses. Anyway, they were found, and they were brought back, and she had 2 more years attached to her sentence. So she served 32 years and was paroled in 2007. And she's been out ever since. Although she did, a couple of years ago, go to Israel somehow. And then when she came back, she was rearrested because she missed her parole hearing. And so she served another year in a jail in New York, and she's out. She is now living in a nursing home in Nashville.
How old is she?
Let's see, she's 15 years, I think she's like 90, 92.
Oh, she must be harmless, I would think.
Oh, yeah. She's still a nasty person. I know somebody who went to try to help her, and he said, I can't help that woman, she's just so mean.
No, the older, if you're that way,
Yeah.
you're worse when you get older.
Just get trickier.
Yeah, just get meaner. And if you're nice,
I
you're
think it's
nice.
kind of interesting that she walked the gun the day before, and even though you advised her.
The
about
day of,
site-
the morning of.
Okay, but even though she is an experienced marks person, she knows there's, the site is off, that she doesn't go test it. And so did anybody ever suggest, are you sure you wanted to kill President Ford? Maybe there was a little bit that didn't get through? Did anybody ever approach that idea?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you tell her about the organization
That's a
she
good
belonged to?
question, sir.
Tribal Thumb?
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, the nasty people.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that was why she was doing it.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember in 75, with the Patty Hearst kidnapping,
Right.
we had the People in Need food giveaway. We had the Sudanese Liberation Army, Black Panthers,
Black Panthers.
Prairie Fire Organizing Committee.
What a mess.
75 in San Francisco was the height of radicalism. And it was the height of counterintelligence FBI program. There were more counterintelligence informers in the Bay Area than anywhere else in the United States. This is from Richard Vitamonte. They had, it was the saying, if you were at a meeting, the person to your left or the person to your right is an informant in this crowd. And that was what was going on. And she wanted to be part of that. She went to the People in Need food program, walked up to a group of people and said, God sent me. And they looked at her like, oh my God. We were like, and so she worked herself in there and then did such a bad job, they had to kick her out. But she wanted to be somebody in terms of this group. She wanted people to point to her and say, she's really a good radical. Even though she still looked like a little preppy garden lady. She didn't look like a hippie back then. All right, I think we're done.
Well, you gave it.
Thank you very much.